Hey guys, welcome back to Winning the Game of Life. I'm Pamela.
And I'm Fabian.
And today we have a very special guest. We have Brandon, who was a former professional soccer player who got to play in France, turned into a lawyer, and now he is an entrepreneur. So Brandon, why don't you take it away and kind of explain to us your journey that led you here?
Man of many hats.
Yes.
Where do I start? I think I'll go back to the very, very beginning, right?
Let's hear it.
I like to tell people I was born at a very young age. And
Like 5?
I think growing up, I think my background is a bit different than most people. Maybe my story is probably not that unique at all. I'm first generation here in the U.S. My dad's from a very small country called Guyana. Growing up in our household, academics was like a very big deal. Mm-hmm. And so as far back as I can remember, he'd always teach me and my brother like advanced education on the weekends, things like that. And so going throughout school, I was always 2 years ahead, 2.5 years ahead.
Oh, wow.
And it's interesting because growing up, no one really knew until I told all my friends in senior year of high school. And they were pretty mad about it. But yeah, so, as far as soccer goes, I'm what you'd call a late bloomer. I wasn't really anything special until I was maybe 16, 17.
Oh, wow.
And by then, I was going into my first year of college. So coming out of high school, I was a decent high school player. Mm-hmm. But coming out, no one really wanted to pick me up for a D1. And my parents wanted me to stay local to Riverside, so I went to the UC Riverside ID camp. And the coach at the time liked me, wanted me to play. But again, academics are big in my household. My dad said, no, you're not playing. Focus on school.
Wow.
And so I did that for 2 years until I turned 18. And, I befriended a lot of guys that were on the team at the time. And I'd play indoor with them. During summers, we'd play in the same summer leagues. And they'd always ask me, like, dude, you need to come play for the team, come play for the team. So when I turned 18, I moved out just for that summer, just so I could go train without my dad knowing about it.
Bye, Dad.
Oh, my gosh. Sneaky.
Yeah. And, ended up that fall, made it into the team. And playing there was kind of tough for me. I was always educated as a striker or a winger. And at the time, the squad was having problems at left back, and that's where he wanted me to play. So I butted heads with the coach a lot. And so that fall season, I really didn't play too much. Spring season, finally got to play forward. And the following year, he recruited like 3 or 4 other forwards. So I was back in the same position.
Left back?
Yeah. And so, again, at the end of that year, I was set to graduate. I was going to stop playing. And someone who trained me a lot growing up, he sent me to a combine out in Florida. Mm-hmm. And happened to get seen by the right people. And that's how I got my opportunity. So
That's incredible. So how long were you able to play in France?
a year and a half.
A year and a half.
Did you go straight from college to France, or did you play anywhere else before that?
So there was a summer league I played in.
Mm-hmm.
Fabian, you're probably familiar with this team, Everton.
Yeah, Everton. Yeah.
In the Premier League. So they had a partnership with a local club here.
Oh, cool.
They had an under-23 team and an under-20 team in that particular league. Mm-hmm. Was able to play that summer for both teams prior to going to Europe.
Nice.
Wow.
That's
and how
crazy.
was that, breaking that news to your parents? Because, you were explaining they're very
It's funny
academic-based.
it's funny because at first they didn't believe me. They were like,
They're right. You're not going to France.
where do you have time to do this? Like, how did all this happen?
They didn't know you did it when you were gone.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah. And so it wasn't until that summer I was gone. I was like, all right, well, fuck, like, if you guys aren't going to come, I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
And, my mom called me one day and she said, hey, where are you? We thought you were coming to visit today. And I was like, no, I told you I was going to France. That's where I'm at right now. And, they were going back and forth.
Wait,
and
they didn't know about soccer until
they
France?
thought,
Yes.
well, no, they knew. Like,
Okay.
they knew I was playing at UCR. They would come to games and things, and they came that summer, but they didn't know that I was
Gonna try.
taking it that seriously, right?
Yeah.
And so my dad was on speaker, and he was like, you're not, like, there's no way. And I hadn't been using my phone while I was there. It was the first time, and he got a text for roaming charges because I was on the family plan.
Ooh.
And he was like, oh, okay, I get it.
He's like, wow, he really went to France.
Yeah. So, that's how it happened.
And then what happened at the 1.5 year mark?
My Achilles ruptured.
Oof.
Dang, so that's done. You can't come back from that?
I mean, you can come back. I haven't tried to. not competitively. I play in
He's still a
Sunday
free
leagues here
agent.
and
If you
there.
guys are watching this,
Yeah, someone sign him.
LA Galaxy, LAFC. We got 2 teams now.
The dream, right?
The dream.
No, I haven't really tried to compete seriously.
Since then.
Since then, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's a local league that I play in with a few of the guys from ECR, but other than that, I haven't.
How long's it been since then? Since your injury?
Wow, it's been years. The first serious injury was back in, I think 2013,
Uh-huh.
and then I had another bad injury, and this one happened while I was coaching.
Oh, okay.
I
On the
was coaching-
sideline, you're just yelling.
No,
and
I jumped into the drills with the players,
Uh-huh.
and it was a U17 team, and I was
broke your ankle
I
or
was
what?
not in shape. No, it was my knee that time.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that was back in 2015. So
Dang.
since then, obviously I'm not going to train the same. I'm not going to move the same. But I still like to kick a ball here and there.
That's
Nice.
amazing.
Yeah.
So then, after you decided to walk away from soccer, you went to become a lawyer.
Yeah.
So how was that? Did you already study that in school? So did you just kind of have to come back and hop right back into that, or?
Yeah. I went straight into it.
Okay.
And it's interesting because in my family, everyone's in medicine, and academically, that's what they wanted to push me into.
Okay.
My dad has a practice, and he'd always talk about, hey, go to med school, do this, do that. You can take over at some point. But I always wanted to do something different. And when you're a kid and you like to argue with your parents, they always say to you, oh, you'd be such a good lawyer. So
You're like,
That is
okay.
so
I'll take you up on
true.
that. Yeah.
That is so true.
Better
Like,
than
you're
being
so
a
good at
doctor,
arguing,
right?
you should be a
Right.
lawyer, and you're like, okay, then I will be.
Yeah. And so, so that's why law school. Why law? Yeah.
And then you ended that when?
I graduated 2015, finished the bar shortly after, and I worked in the field maybe 6 months before I decided
Not
Dang.
it
for
wasn't for me. Yeah.
Wow.
How did you do all of that schooling and then only last 6 months in the field?
Yeah, that's so true.
You know,
That's a lot of
like,
time
that's-
to be in
that's
school.
crazy.
I ask myself that often, but look, the way I look at it, it's better, 3 years of law school than 8 years of medicine.
That's
right?
so
Yeah,
true.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
true.
That's true.
But law is interesting because getting a legal education doesn't mean you have to be a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what field you go into in life. Knowing the law is always going to benefit you in some way, and that's the
Yeah.
outlook I chose to take on it.
Yeah, that's a great thing to have.
Yeah,
in your,
especially
like,
being an
tool belt.
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah, especially since you are an entrepreneur, I'm sure you have to know, where the loopholes are and how things work.
Yeah,
Especially the loopholes.
Loopholes,
Especially-
yeah. Reading
especially
that
the
contract, like
loopholes.
I see the loophole.
So the tax
So,
breaks and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So as an entrepreneur, like, what are you doing? Because I mean, obviously, entrepreneur is like a broad term. Oh,
Yeah.
Excuse me.
It's funny you say that because I remember this so vividly. In fourth grade, my fourth grade teacher, they have the conversations in elementary school, like, what do you want to be when you grow
wanna
up?
be?
Yeah.
And entrepreneur was on the list, and I'd never seen the word before. No one in the class had, right? And someone raised their hand and asked, hey, what does entrepreneur mean? And the teacher kind of laughed and said, it's just a fancy way of saying unemployed, right?
I have
Whoa.
girls that still say that when a guy has it on their
Whoa.
like dating profiles.
Right.
Like, oh, he's unemployed. I'm like, oh, damn.
But as an entrepreneur, there's a few different things that I do. Probably the most like prominent business I have right now is a marketing agency.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's presents unique challenges, but it's definitely probably the most fun.
The most fun.
Yeah.
So what kind of marketing like assignments do you get? Is it like digital? Is
Yeah.
it's all digital?
Mostly digital, yeah.
Mostly digital.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you do
but
any
not
old school
all
marketing?
digital.
I didn't go to school for marketing. No.
Or I meant, do you do any old school like marketing?
old school
tactics?
like print
Yeah.
ads,
Yeah.
TV, things like that. No, we don't. So yeah, I
Right.
mean, really, it's all digital.
Digital.
Yeah.
Honestly, everything's become so digital anyway. Like, I mean, look at social media. There's people getting paid to influence because of marketing.
Right.
So that's like the new approach. I feel like everyone's starting to do.
Yeah, and I think that was really accelerated with what we saw last year with COVID.
Oh, absolutely.
Businesses that were all brick and mortar, solely offline, most of them got wiped out. Right. Those that made the transition to more digital platforms or were already established there, are the ones that are thriving today, continuing to grow today.
Wow. So what made you want to start your own digital marketing company?
From lawyer.
In soccer.
Yeah.
Lawyer.
Soccer lawyer.
Digital marketer.
Digital marketing.
So it's interesting how it happened. In law, my focus was IP and business.
Oh.
And what I saw with IP a lot of the time was people had fantastic ideas, but many of them had no idea how to market them, right? And if you have an idea or a business and you can't get the idea out there, it's never gonna become anything. So at the time, one of my best friends, he was in school for marketing, and I thought to myself, well, if I can help on the IP side and you can help on the marketing side, then we can team up and do something.
Oh, wow.
But and yeah, so that's initially what the concept was. But we realized that, if we just focus on one rather than the other, then we can, dialing, we can do so much better with it. So we decided to focus on marketing, and yeah, we're still here today.
Wow.
So was it just two of you guys from the start, or
At the beginning, yeah, two of us, and then, as time went on, more people were added to the team.
So how many people do you guys have on the team now?
I want to say 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So from 2 to 8.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, like, for me, if you asked me, like, what the mindset of, like, an entrepreneur would be, I would say it's somebody who has, like, a big vision, right? Like, big vision mindset, like, believes that they can do basically anything they put their mind to. What would you say is the mindset of an entrepreneur?
I would agree with that. Definitely
Okay.
someone who, has a grand vision for things. I like to think of it as, someone who has an imagination of a child, right? Because
I've never heard that.
yeah,
it's
and
true.
it's
The dreamers.
Yeah,
It's-
dreamers.
Yeah.
It's funny because I have a young child now, and seeing the way he looks at the world and trying to imagine things through his eyes, it's like, damn, like at one point I used to think like that, or
Yeah.
I used to look at the world that way. But yeah, someone who has a grand vision, but more importantly, people who are able to pull that vision into the present. Because the truth is, everyone has dreams, right? Everyone has goals for their life, things they want to accomplish, but very few people are able to make that happen. Why is that? And I think it has a lot to do with an individual's belief system, a lot to do with the way an individual has their own mind set up, and then their ability to go out and execute it even in the face of adversity.
Oh, wow. I've never thought about it in that sense. That's actually really cool. I'm going to have to steal that.
Thanks.
I'm going to steal that
I
one.
feel like with the issue with a lot of people is that they let society let them be like more realistic of goals
100%.
instead of continuing to dream and be like, I'm going to be this in a few years, and then society is just pulling them down. Like, dude, like no, that just takes too much work, and they just end up not being
Absolutely.
able
I
to do
think
it.
the societal norms is they want us all to just, do a 9 to 5 and like go to your job and do what you went to school for. Like they want us to go to school to make money, but they never really teach us how to make money work for us.
Yeah.
Like what can you do outside of just working to make money?
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you mentioned like the teachers too are like, oh, you can't do that. Like be more realistic, things like that. I know someone who is a professional athlete, played baseball, and like you said, in 4th grade, they ask you, what do you want to be? And he said a professional baseball player. And she's like, okay, we need to be more realistic. Like what can you really be?
Right.
He ended up becoming a professional baseball player in the end.
Yeah.
And teachers, for some reason, not all teachers, obviously, and it's not just teachers, parents, you name it, they lose that sense of like hope, like that someone can do something they actually want to do.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that you decided to go against what your parents, taught you, academics, and said, I'm going to try something different.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. Well, with my parents, it's funny because, growing up, our parents always tell us, do as I say, not as I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even though they push academics on me a lot, they've always had their own business, right? And
Oh,
yeah,
wait, funny.
and so during summers and even some days after school, they'd have my brother and I, go into their office and help with certain things. So I think, subconsciously, I was kind of programmed to do business.
Got it.
Even though they're always telling me academics is the way. And, touching on what you said a second ago, how we're all taught the same system. Well, most of us, right? I like to say 97% of people are taught this to follow the same system, right? We're taught you go to school, you get good grades, you graduate, you work for 40 years, and then you retire.
Yep.
And while we're in that school system, what sort of information are we fed, right? We're taught, history from 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, which, don't get me wrong, is it's not unimportant to know.
Yeah.
Right. But we're taught a lot about
Things that we're not really using.
Yeah, sorry.
You could say it, things we don't really use.
Information that we don't use, right?
Yes.
But what if we were taught how to start a business? What if we were taught something as simple as how to file our own taxes?
I was just talking to someone about that yesterday. How are we not taught that?
As adults, remember the very first time you were forced to file your taxes?
I felt like I was learning a new language. I was like,
luckily, my mom, I was going to say my wife, no, my mom's a tax lady. So luckily, by the time I got my first W-2, I was like, here you go, Mom. And she's like, cool. And boop, boop, boop. All right, you're going to get your taxes back. I still didn't know what the heck that even meant. I was like, I just file the paperwork so I can get money back. Cool.
I used to throw away the forms because I didn't know.
Yeah.
My mom was like, where's this form? I'm like, well, I didn't know I needed to keep it.
Yeah.
IRS, she wasn't paying taxes.
Don't worry, I had to pay fines. I'm so over the fines, damn it. But because I was never taught, you know, and it's funny, my mom was shocked. And I was like, well, no one told me. Like, how was I supposed to know?
Right.
You know, because it's true. Why were we not taught taxes? Why were we not taught how to build a business? Because there's a lot of minds like yours that unfortunately got just stuck on the hamster wheel.
Yeah. I think most people really are psychologically unemployable. They just don't believe they have another option, right? I think the beauty of the world that we live in today is we have so many tools and resources at our disposal now that people are starting to wake up and realize that there's so many other things that they can do to make a living or to transform things that they're passionate about into a living.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because you were saying you didn't go to school for marketing. How did you even learn how to market and digital marketing and all that stuff? Like, how did that?
Online courses.
Yeah.
It's funny. The first course that I like took or used for marketing was Ty Lopez's course. And if anyone in marketing watches this, they're probably going to laugh. But it was a really good introduction. You know, that in his course, there was a guy named Jeremy Haynes who had like a few guest spots on it. And, you know, an individual that partnered with later on said, hey, if this guy Jeremy Haynes is the real deal, you should check out his content. We should get it and use it and learn from it. And so we did. And it turns out Jeremy, his course taught you how to really build an agency from A to Z. Like any information you'd actually need was in that course. And we took that and made that kind of our blueprint. And that's what allowed us to scale. So
that's incredible.
Yeah. Online there you go, guys. If you guys want to start your own agency.
Yeah, online courses too. I feel like there's so many online courses that most people think that they have to go to school. They have to go into a building.
Yeah.
But there's actually a lot more resources, like you said. I just never thought to do that. But I'm told that all the time. My friends are always like, you can go online, do it online. I'm like, oh, I guess I should start using my resources a lot better.
You don't have to take out a student loan to do it either.
True.
Also very true. Also very true. So how are your parents now with your business? Do they support you?
Board guy.
See, we're at it again. Oh. Board guy.
Sorry.
Board guy, what's going on? Yeah.
He needs to work on his hand gestures.
Okay.
Excuse us.
What was it? Was he like?
He was like.
He's probably doing this, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Drink? You need it. Brandon needs a drink.
I saw you looking at him. I'm like, what is he doing over there?
Oh.
Dude, Brandon's looking the whole time making faces, and I was like, I didn't want to look at you, so I'm like thinking, like, what is he doing over there? I thought you were like cracking up about something.
Bro.
My bad.
We're keeping this in. All right, David, keep this in.
Bloopers,
keep this in.
Blooper reel.
Oh, man.
So how do your parents feel about it now that you've started your own business and you've had it for a few years now, right?
Yeah, they love it.
Oh, that's amazing.
They love it. Yeah. It's funny because. It's to the point now where my dad comes to me for investment advice.
Oh, so you invest?
Yeah.
So you don't just do marketing?
Not just marketing, no.
We just entered a new discussion. Tell us about investments, Brandon.
Well, probably 3 months before COVID hit. Well, actually, no, probably 5 months before. I went to New York. A really good family friend is a real estate broker. And she had a connection in New York. There's a new development out there, and she invited us to come out and check it out. And at the time, my dad was asking me, hey, like, we have this capital. What should we be getting into? So the timing was good. We went to New York. We got a couple units out there, and you know, we made a $250,000 deposit for the units a few months before COVID happened. Construction was going well. Everything was going great. And then all of a sudden, there's lockdowns, and half of New York residents leave. So
Oh gosh.
So that was
That's a
our
tough pill to
first
swallow, Brandon.
First L.
our first foray into the rental market. And I mean,
That was your first project together?
yeah, our first, well, in as far
real
as real
estate?
estate, yeah.
Which is actually what a lot of people suggest when you get the opportunity to
Yeah.
jump into real estate.
Yeah. And prior to real estate, we got involved in crypto together as well. We were actually really lucky. In 2017, early 2017, my brother-in-law called me one day and he was like, "Hey man, have you heard about this thing called Bitcoin?" And I'd heard of it, but I had never really looked into it. And he said, "Yeah, I put a couple thousand into it a few months ago, and it's almost double now. You should really look into it." And you know, at that time we weren't that close.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, cool. I'll think about
Cool
it."
story, bro.
Yeah, I was like, "I'll
Nice.
think about it." And then he called me again a couple months after that and said, "Dude, you really need to look at this crypto thing." So at the time, well, not at the time, even to this day, he does private security, and he does security for some pretty well-known artists, and a manager for some extremely well-known artists. He was told him, "Hey, like this is what you need to buy." And he called me and said, "Hey, the guy that I work for says to buy these things." And I knew who the gentleman was. I said, "Oh, this guy's doing it." All right, I'll start looking at it. And it's funny how that works, right? Someone who's close to you can say,
You're like, nah.
can tell you exactly what to do when
But
you
someone
brush it
bigger
off.
says it,
But
yeah.
yeah, like that third party credibility. So we started looking at it more closely, and I think in September was when we actually like first jumped into it, put a little bit of money in, and started scaling in. And then I'll never forget, I got married in December of 2017. We were on a trip to Punta Cana at the time. It was a destination wedding. And we were sitting there. We couldn't stop looking at our phones because that's when like the bull market really kicked off.
Dang.
And yeah, it was a pretty crazy trip just because every time we looked at our phone, like portfolio went up.
On top of the fact you guys just got married.
Yeah,
So it's
Like,
like
this is
that.
a
It's like
win-win.
Vegas when you pull that and it's just ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, crypto is a pretty big thing for us. We're looking now. NFTs are the thing. You know, you have DeFi as well, staking. So we're looking at putting some more capital in the market there. And I don't know how much Sir just told you guys. We had about 8 acres over in Riverside. We just built a house on as well.
Wow, that's incredible. Congratulations.
Oh, crazy.
Dang, Apollo's going to have a field day there.
Yeah. He
You gonna build them a soccer field too?
You know what? It's so funny. The other day, are you guys familiar with Clamato? You never heard of Clamato? Like the little comes in a can.
Like Clamato.
Oh,
Clamato.
Clamato
yeah.
juice.
Yeah. So
Sorry, I'm Hispanic. We call it
Yeah,
clamato.
Yeah, that's why I said Clamato.
Clamato? Is that a soccer player?
so one of our agency partners, she lives next door to the woman that founded Clamato.
Wow.
What?
And I went over there 2 weeks ago and got to see their house. And I'm walking. I didn't even get to go inside. I was just in the yard. And I was looking around at the backyard. And I was like, excuse my language, I was like, these niggas have a basketball court in the backyard, a turf field, like a full-size
crazy.
turf field in
What?
the backyard. And I'm thinking to myself, like, we just built this beautiful home. I'm thinking we're doing pretty good. And I'm like, yo.
Dang it, I got to get a turf field
We
now.
gotta-
This is the beginning.
Yeah, like we gotta do something here. So yeah, it's funny you ask. Like now that is in the plan is to build a turf
Soccer field.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang. You shouldn't have told us. We might show up too.
Was digital marketing is digital marketing still your thing that you're focusing on, or are you doing more of the investments and all that stuff now?
Yeah. Well, this past year, it's I've gone a bit heavier in investments. Amazon stores, obviously more crypto investment.
Yeah.
I learned to actually like trade currency in the last year as well, and have been spending a lot of time doing that too.
Oh, awesome. So that's kind of where your interest is right now.
At the moment, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So can you explain further what NFTs are? Because I've heard very recently too, actually. As
Yeah, we had a host. We had a host talk about it.
talked about NFTs, and I work for a private jet company, and everyone who I've talked to there, like everyone's like NFTs. I'm like, okay. Can you explain that a little further for people who are interested in getting involved in investments? Because that is kind of what is in now.
Yeah. So an NFT is basically it could be a piece of art, it could be a music track, but it's basically something that a token is attached to on the blockchain. Like think of it as a digital piece of art, right? And the idea with an NFT is that because they're attached to a token and because a specific amount of them has been minted, you can attach a value to that, which is why you see things like CryptoPunks, for example. There's been a limited amount of CryptoPunks minted, and because they're scarce on the blockchain, you see them selling for 100 Ether or 150 Ether, right? So that it's basically the innovation of digital art now tied to the blockchain.
So this would be like an NFT.
You can make it into one, yeah. Yeah, you can make it.
Board guy NFT.
So, what do you think the future is of NFT is?
Man, that's a tough question to answer. I think that
I mean, it could be anything, really.
it could be anything. I was looking at one earlier today where you can take memories of your loved ones and mint them as NFTs. Yeah.
Wait, so you can create your own NFT?
Yeah.
How? Do I just like go online and Google how to make NFT?
That would be a good start.
Really? Dude, power of freaking Google. I seriously Google everything. I'm not kidding. Good to know. So you guys Google
Is there like apps for it right now, like Coinbase is for crypto and stuff like that?
Yeah, there are a few platforms that allow you to mint NFTs. And then there are some that are platforms specifically for collecting NFTs, right? Like you have Top Shot. NBA Top Shot. A big one that I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's called Beeple. The artist? Yeah. Oh, so you're familiar with it? Yeah.
Little Bordy over there.
So they're
not mic'd up. Sorry, guys.
He's doing an auction today, and I think like on the drive over here, I was looking at it, and he's raised like $6 million since this morning. Yeah, it's insane. So like for the last 5 or 6, maybe 7 years, he's been doing a particular piece of art every single day. He calls them the Everyday Collection, and it's pretty outlandish stuff. I personally think it's pretty cool, but yeah, people are just crazy about this shit. Like someone
with
literally paid
NFTs,
100
I feel
Ether.
like every time I've heard of them, there's always like billions of dollars or millions of dollars getting sold and stuff like that. Is that how it is right now, or you can buy NFTs for like change now? Or
Yeah, I mean they're not all gonna be like thousands or millions of dollars. There's some that I'm sure you could get for a few $100, right?
Like if I made my own NFT, I'm sure nobody's gonna.
I mean, hey, you never know.
I'll buy it to
You never
support
know.
you.
Someone
For a dollar.
someone could think that it's cool and pay like $50,000 for it. I don't know. It's whatever. That's the beauty about art, right? Its value is whatever someone's willing to pay for it.
It's what you
makes
perceive it to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Dude, imagine doing that with video games. Like, oh, you want my loadout system, like what I have for Call of Duty? Buy my NFT and you'll get my loadout.
That's actually a concept. It's actually a concept.
Because there's sometimes where if I kill someone on Call of Duty and Warzone and I liked their guns more, I will literally swoop all their guns and drop whatever my loadout is.
Exactly.
And I'm like, dang, this is a really good loadout.
Yeah.
I'm telling you guys right now, I would 100% buy an NFT of a loadout. 1,000%.
Oh, there you go.
heard
Somebody
here
do it.
first.
Somebody do it.
I will buy it. I will give you my money. Maybe not more than $50, but I would still do it. I have a price.
But that's something that people have talked about doing is like NFTing collectible items in video games and allowing them to be transferred from one generation of a game to a next.
Wow.
Right? So it's definitely a concept.
Yeah, because you can just put the QR code or whatever that is
And get
into
it.
the new game, and then it'll just download into it.
Yeah.
Right?
Or I mean,
Crazy.
if the games are built on a particular blockchain, then yeah.
So outside of NFTs, where was your first introduction into investments? Because again, you're not really taught that in school. I mean, you're not.
Mm-mm.
You go. For
with his
instance,
path, he went from soccer player to lawyer, digital marketing, and then now stocks. Like how did
investments.
My first like real introduction to it was I think in 7th or 8th grade.
Oh wow. God, you're a lot younger than I was. I just heard about.
But
it 10
I
years
didn't
ago.
take it seriously though. And
Okay.
that's
how could
the
you really
regret.
at that age?
At
Right?
seventh,
Right.
7th and 8th.
And my dad had sat me and my brother down one day, and he would always give us these books to read, and
Like all parents.
yeah,
Here.
and he would say, "All right, read this book, and we're going to talk about it in 2 weeks." And I was the type of kid that I'd say, "Okay," I'd kind of fuck the book off for 2 weeks and play video games, do whatever else I wanted to do, and then the day before I'd skim it,
Yeah.
and just so I could have a decent conversation about it, right?
Yeah.
Just so he talked about something, you'd be like, oh yeah, like
Exactly,
that part.
exactly. And one of those books was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that book, I'm on Twitter a lot, and people meme that book to oblivion on Twitter, but it's such a good introduction to financial education, and investing, right?
I'm really
do they
glad
meme
that I
it?
asked you
Yeah.
because I was gonna ask you to share with the audience how to get started in investing. So I'm glad that you actually brought up that book because we've heard about that. I think in the last 2 days, we've heard about it before.
Yeah.
Recently.
Okay.
From another guy who's in investing.
Cool.
Yeah. So Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yep.
You guys remember that Rich Dad Poor Dad? This is gonna change your life.
Do they meme it in a good way or a bad way?
In a bad way.
bad
And
way?
it's so weird to me.
Haters gonna hate.
Yeah, like they say that it's cliche and like the concepts in the book aren't applicable to everybody. And no, like they really are, you know?
You know what that is? Fear. That's fear.
Exactly.
People don't want to believe something good like that can be real.
Right. And so he had us read that book, and then the week after he had us read it, he said, all right, I want you guys to pick like 9 companies to invest in. And I was in the video games at the time, so all my companies that I picked were video game companies.
What'd you pick?
I think I picked like Nintendo, I picked Sega.
I could see
You would have lost on that one.
I know.
I actually picked ATI because my computer at the time needed a new video card to play some of the new games that were coming out, and they had the Radeon. I thought it was the coolest thing, and I was like, oh, like this one seems pretty cool. I want to do ATI, which is funny because their video cards now, well, maybe not right now, but back in 2017, people were spending a shit ton of money on them to mine Bitcoin, right? And the rest I can't remember, but those are the 3 that stood out to me the most. Maybe Microsoft, I don't know. But Nintendo, Sega, and ATI were definitely on the list.
And so your dad invested that for you guys on your behalf?
He didn't, no.
Oh,
He didn't.
dang. I was
Yeah.
going to say, so where are you at now?
That would have been the
Never
ultimate
mind.
dad move. Like, all right, cool. I'll hold these on for you
Yeah.
guys. And
Right.
invest in
Yeah.
them.
Exactly.
You know, I actually know a lot of people who do that for their kids instead of birthday presents. They have stock portfolios for all their kids and say just donate to their stocks.
Yeah.
Literally, and then they get it at the end
I think
of
he
their...
planned to do that, but like I was so melancholy and disinterested about it, he just never went ahead with it. So
Now look at you now.
yeah.
So have you read that book again recently?
Yeah. Well, not recently. I think the last time I read it was in 2015.
Okay, so
Yeah.
not too long ago.
Not too long
since
ago.
Since 8th grade you have again.
Yeah.
Okay, that was kind of all I wanted to know.
Have you looked
Like,
at the
please tell me you
stock
read it.
prices back when you were doing that exercise to where they are now?
I haven't.
No?
I haven't.
Should, just to see.
I'm sure Sega isn't worth much.
Yeah.
But I'd love to
God,
see
I
like
love
Nintendo
Sonic,
and ATI.
Yeah, like imagine, and you can bring that up to your dad. Like, Dad, if you would have put in when you said you were going
Look what we
to.
could have been, Dad.
Right.
So, do you have any other advice for people who are looking to get into investing? Where would you suggest people start?
Honestly,
I mean, because there's stocks, there's
Now,
real
do you
estate,
want,
there's mutual
like,
funds. I mean,
am
you
I
name
am
it.
I allowed to like? Are we allowed to?
This is real,
Okay. Honestly,
unless this is a simulation.
if you're not investing in crypto right now, you're gonna be fucked. You're gonna be fucked.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
Wow, I feel like I've just been woke.
that's
Oh
just
my
me.
God.
I mean, I can see that because last year I actually, shout out to Dogecoin, I actually had,
I thought you were going to say
Fif-
Doja Cat.
no, Doja, shout out to Doja Cat.
I was like, yeah.
No, shout out to Dogecoin. I actually had, I think it was somewhere like 15,000 Dogecoin because it was so like inexpensive back then, like a year ago. And me being me and all my friends were like, oh no, it's just a meme coin.
a
Like
meme.
sell it,
Yeah.
sell it. Like once you make a little bit off of it, I'm like, okay, cool. If I would have kept what I had and with this rise that it just recently had, I would have been stacked. And dumb me, I sold it for $20 and made $20, and I was like, sick, all right, cool. And then I tried to hop back in when it was like writing, and then I flipped my money again, but then like I would have been so much more well off like if I wouldn't have,
Just
if
held
I
it.
had just
Done
kept
that.
it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they say. A lot of these investments that people make, it has to be long term.
Yeah. You have to have a long-term mentality.
You gotta have faith.
And don't get me wrong, like the beauty with crypto is if you pick the right coin, you could get in it today and it could do like a 50x in a few months from now. That's not going to happen with every coin though, right? You know, you have to look for coins that actually have, or tokens that have some sort of utility, right? Me personally, obviously NFTs I think are big. DeFi or decentralized finance is big. Staking is big. And, you have the coins right now that already have, stores of value like Bitcoin, Ethereum, almost everything is built on Ethereum now. If I was new to investing, I'd look at coins coins or platforms that are meant to compete with Ethereum, but right now can do things a bit better than them, right? There are platforms that are able to handle more.
I hope you guys are taking notes. Oh my God, I wish I had a notebook right now.
I mean, hey, it's recorded. You can always watch it back, right?
True. Yeah. Yes.
But there are platforms that can handle more transactions right now than Ethereum. A big challenge with that, with Ethereum, has been the scaling issue, right? Meaning it can only handle so many transactions per minute or per second before it becomes prohibitive to do anymore, right? So when you see
kind of like what happened with GameStop stock in a way.
I wouldn't say that, right?
Yeah.
So with Ethereum, when you're in a point in the market like right now, when Ethereum is on a bull run, it almost doesn't make sense to make small transactions with Ethereum. Like, I wouldn't be able to send somebody $100 of Ethereum because the transaction is going to cost me 40 or 50 because of what's called gas fees.
Wow.
Right. So that's a huge issue that they're having that they have to work through. There are other platforms right now that can do the same things Ethereum does, but they don't have those sorts of issues. Right. Now, I'm not saying they're going to dethrone Ethereum or that Ethereum's going to fail to solve those issues.
Yeah.
But you can make some decent. Well, this is investment advice, right?
This is
That's
your own
literally what
research.
everyone
Do
says
your
too.
own
They're like,
research.
FYI, this,
Yeah.
I'm not legally telling you to do investing stuff.
Right.
Just
Just
FYI.
do your own research, but you pick the right ones, you can do very well.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you.
I'm glad that we asked
Dogecoin to
that.
the moon.
Doja Cat.
You know,
Doja Cat.
we're talking about accepting crypto. There's a realtor on. He's so big on YouTube. I forget his name.
Brandon, Mike's.
Nice.
Oh,
So you're
Mike.
You
my
can pull
fault.
it back with you if you want to lean back.
Let me
Lean back.
actually look him up.
Well, you know, there's a baseball player who just accepted a new contract. I forgot what the numbers are, but half of his contract was paid cash, and the other half is crypto.
Yeah.
What?
There's a
First
linesman.
athlete. He is the first
His
athlete
name's
to have done
Ryan
it.
Serhant. So there's an athlete in the NFL. I think he's a linesman. Last year, he said he wanted his salary completely paid in crypto. And I think I read a few weeks ago that he's now the highest paid player in the NFL. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me breathe.
So there's a realtor named Ryan Serhant. Board guy, I think, knows who he is. Yes. He does a lot in New York. He has a lot of listings in New York. But a few years ago, a buyer wanted to pay in Bitcoin, and it was a ridiculous amount of Bitcoin. I forget the exact number, but if he had taken the offer, he'd be a billionaire today.
Sheesh.
And I think he laughed him like out of the showing.
You know, I'm so glad that we're talking about this because you hear invest, and right away people are like, stocks.
Yeah.
Regular stocks, yeah.
Stocks, yeah. People are like, oh, go Tesla, get Disney. Some people will talk about mutual funds, which, you know, I think all those are good. Obviously, stocks, mutual funds, anything you can invest in is good. You're not hearing a lot about crypto and Bitcoin yet.
Yeah.
Yes. Because, I mean, you do hear about it from some people, but when Bitcoin first came out, when was it, like 5 years ago, right? 6 years ago?
Well, it's been around for almost a decade now. Yeah.
Well, I
People
heard
still
about
been
it.
sleeping on it.
I heard about it about 5 years ago, and I remember it was, you know, risky
Yeah.
at that point. You know, it was risky. It was you kind of take the leap of faith and hope that it becomes what it is now.
Yeah. And it's so funny how like humans are wired, right? When you can invest in something when it's like $100 or $50, people are like,
I don't know.
I don't know. But now it's almost at 60 grand and everyone's like, fuck, I need some Bitcoin,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like 5 years ago when it was like starting to peak at 16, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy!" And everybody's like, "Sell! It's gonna crash!" And then
Yeah.
it crashed, and then now it's at 60. And I'm like, dude, all these people that if they would have just held at that point too,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Or bought
It's
more when
crazy.
it crashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again,
nuts.
though, I think that's the beauty and of like investing is you have to take that jump, right? You have to just believe that even though it's a risk, you're not going to see the reward right away.
Yeah.
The whole point of investing is for the long-term purposes, you know,
right.
so we can retire at a younger age, so we can be comfortable sooner.
Right. And yeah, like I'm glad that you said that. You know, so many the biggest I think objection that I get from friends when they'll ask me for advice and I'll share my advice and they'll say, "Oh, well, I want to do it when I have this much money saved," or "Oh, I want to do it once this happens." And it's like, dude, you can start now,
It's the beauty of crypto, honestly.
Right. And invest what you can now. And as your situation betters, invest more. Just don't invest what you can't afford to lose.
Absolutely. I will say this before we start to wrap things up. One thing that a financial advisor of mine said to me was the biggest mistake most people do is they just keep letting their paychecks go to their bank account and they let it sit.
Yeah.
So it just sits and it sits and it sits until they're 40, 50, and they're like, oh, I should invest some of this. I should have. He's like, you should not have more than like 5 to 10 grand max in your bank account. Everything you make, you should be investing. He's like, because that doubles, it quadruples. He's like, you will see a change in the years to come.
Right.
He's like, but you have to start.
Right.
He's like, and it's never too late to start. And he's like, but it's also never too early.
Right. And yeah, like, again, I'm glad you said that. Ask your people who are watching, ask yourself this question: when does money take its value, or where does money have its value? Right? When it's actually moving, when you're making transactions with it, when it's sitting stagnant, it's
dying.
It's dying.
It's
right?
dying.
Especially now, you think about the stimulus. I think they signed it this morning. The House
this
passed
morning.
it this morning. They're injecting, how much is it? $1.3 trillion.
Yeah, something like that.
They're printing. So just basic economic sense. The value of the dollar is going to depreciate, right? So if you decide to keep your money in the bank, what's worth $100 today is not going to be worth $100. That same $100 isn't going to have the same value a year from now.
Absolutely.
Right? So what can you do now to protect the value of what you have? You have to put it, you have to invest it, put it in things like stocks, crypto, hard assets, etc. So, yeah.
Wow, I feel very awakened. I feel like my third eye
So you
is
woke?
thinking NFTs and DeFi.
Pam's woke, guys.
Bitcoin.
Pam's woke.
I'm like crypto. My meditations are going to be all about crypto. Just kidding. So we always end the podcast with 2 questions.
Yeah.
So I will start. If you could define winning the game of life, how would you define it?
Damn, that's a good question.
Deep, isn't it? We're deep. We're crypto deep.
We try. We try.
In their like swimwear.
Winning the game of life. I think there's a quote, I think, by Earl Nightingale where he says success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, right? So I think like winning, there isn't necessarily a destination, but if you have goals set for yourself and you're making consistent progress towards them, as you reach them, set bigger goals and bigger goals, then I would define that as winning the game of life.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. The journey.
The journey, yep.
So what other business are you going to get into? Future Brandon, what is that going to look like? You went from footballer to lawyer to digital marketer to stocks and investing. What's future Brandon going to be?
How far in the future?
Let's
all is
talk
said
like
and
20
done.
years. 20
20
years.
years, fuck,
Yeah.
hopefully billionaire.
Yeah.
Can I go to your soccer field?
Just off of stocks and stuff, or what do you think you have a game plan like to get past that, or do you think you'll get there from investing in stocks or digital marketing? Who knows?
I don't think it's going to come just from that. I think a big bulk of it, definitely. But, who knows what the future holds?
True.
Who knows?
True. Whatever piques your interest at that time too, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, things change every day. The plan that I have right now may not be viable 5 or 7 years from now as quickly as things change.
Life's funny that way.
Yeah.
Never stops to amaze me.
True,
All right, well, thank you so much for coming to spend the day with us.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate you
Thank you
sharing
guys
your
for having
knowledge
me.
with us and sharing us a little bit, sharing your story with us and the audience.
Yep.
So again, you guys, thank you for tuning in and watching or listening to Winning the Game of Life. Before we let Brandon go, where can people find you on social media platforms to pick your brain?
Instagram, Dr. Day, and Twitter, Dr._Day.
And day is spelled D-E-Y.
D-E-Y, that's
Not
right.
like day, A-Y-E-Y.
Yeah.
Like
Day.
day. Like
Day.
day. Day over there. Please don't cut that. Just
Nice.
cut that.
Nice.
But on
Just
to-
throwing that out there.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to us in Winning the Game of Life. We hope to see you guys next time.
Peace.
Thanks, guys.